evening. I'm Rebecca Highbottom, and this is the Red Lipstick Republic Fake News, where we do our best to bring you all the fake news, conspiracy theories, and rumors that we can find and scavenge. We are your geopolitical soap opera reporters, and from that jumping off point, we are going to start off with discussing what I think is very important to discuss, but I'm not sure that it can only be considered as a positive, and we will get into that in a minute. But the subject for today's broadcast is the win of the European farmers that have pushed the WEF allegedly and seemingly to the edge, fearing for their stability of the WEF and their agenda, and they have now withdrawn the push to the net zero targets. Now, we'll get into the article in just a minute, but before we get started on that, it's very important that we as free-thinking individual, if we still have those still amongst our midst, it is very imperative that every win that we get, we look at from every angle. The WEF and the United Nations and all of these unelected foundations, groups, individuals, people that are within these institutions have a way to speak to us in which we are lulled to believe that their intentions are good. And in WEF this year, 2024, they discussed a lot about getting our trust back. And with that thread throughout the broadcast, I want you to remember that gaining someone's trust means giving something, whether it's your word, whether it's a good gesture, whether it's stepping back from something that you ultimately knew was trespassing or doing something negative towards you. Is this a win for us, for Team Individual, for Team Freedom, for everyone who believes they should have a right to eat meat or eat vegetables or whatever it is that you as a free individual person thinks that you should have the right to, excluding anything that's hurtful to others and that is destructive to others? These things are battles that we must look at and decide whether or not these are battles that are going to help us with our freedom, or are they things that are going to position them in a stronger position. The article starts off by saying, the title of the article actually is European Farmers Protest Force EU to Scrap World Economic Forum Net Zero Targets. Now, the question we have tonight is this a win, or is this an illusion of a win for us to believe that we're getting somewhere, but they are just really not stopping the net zero? They're not scrapping it, because in this article you will see that they're not scrapping it, and we'll get to that. But we're not outright scrapping it, because that's what the article insinuates. It says that it's scrapping, but when we read the article you will see that this doesn't look like it's a full scrap. And if it's not an entire scrap of the whole net zero target, nobody's won anything just yet. So you will be the decider of this article and what you think it's saying. But I'll give in my 2 cents. Even though pennies are no longer a thing in Canada, I'm still going to put my 2 cents in, because that's what I can afford to put in. Because like right now, Trudeau has us on like a zero budget of everything. Okay, the European Union has been forced to scrap the net zero target dictated to the bloc by the globalist WEF. The leaders dropped the controversial Green Agenda goals following spread-wide protests from the farmers on the streets of Europe. The European Union has backed down of the WEF net zero targets for agriculture. where it seeks to force farmers out of business by enforcing. So keep that in mind. It's seeking, the end goal is to seek farmers out of business. So I just wanted to underline that, out of business by forcing dramatic cuts on fertilizers and pesticide use. So the very first arm of them basically bringing them into poverty is that they are going to restrict fertilizers and pesticides that they are able to obtain in order for them to actually make a profit. And it's not easy to make a profit when you're a farmer, just so you know. I have had arguments with people where they think farmers are just greedy. Be a farmer. Why are so few people want to be farmers? If you believe that these people are these giant profit-making machines, why are there so few farmers? And why is there constantly an attack on farmers? So that's the very first thing, that they're going to enforce drastic cuts in fertilizer and pesticides use. So that's the very first thing they're going to do. So they're going to strangle them in that department. Then we go on. All right. Included in the net zero goal are recommendations that the general public eat less meat and switch to consuming lab-grown and insect-based food instead. So first of all, thank you, farmers, so much for all of you who went out there, took the time out of your very busy schedule. I know farmers, and I know they have no time to even wipe their asses properly. And I'm not being facetious. I am being absolutely serious. These farmers are run ragged. If you see their hands, these people still are people from the olden days where they actually use their hands. They don't have little girly hands because they type on keyboards as a career. No offense to anybody that types on keyboards, but there was no such job 100 years ago where you would type on a keyboard and you wouldn't develop manly hands. It's a side note altogether, and it's not to discriminate any keyboarding, typing people or persons, whomever, however the new way of speak is. I apologize, I'm not up to date. But this is just one way that governments are trying to get to us, the people, through hindering the farmers to be able to do their thing. So farmers, on behalf of all us typing people on computers and people that don't go out every morning and feed your animals and tend to the flock, thank you for also defending our rights to eat the meat, the very meat that you build. So thank you from all of us to you. The EU allegedly has caved to angry protests from farmers and cut a target to slash agriculture emission as part of the bloc's net zero drive. So the very first thing that we want to discuss about that is that if you saw any of the protests that were happening, all peaceful protests. However, what the farmers really got smart in doing, and I hope that Canada was part of the farmers', what is the word, inspiration. I hope that we were, as Canadians, inspiring to these farmers to take the most peaceful way to protest and bring the farm to the key generating, law-abiding people that are making these stupid decisions, and show them just how messy and how time-intensive and how rigmarole like this job is. They brought bales of hay. They brought crap, literally and figuratively. They stopped traffic. Everything was done kosher and legit in the way that nobody got hurt, but they got to feel exactly what the farmers deal with every single day. And they were terrified. But let's read on. Miss von der Linden, the lady that's so in love with dear Klaus, said, I know that they are worried, so let me just frame this. The WEF is an unelected body by not me, by not you, but by the very wealthy that join this club. Now, why would you join a club to stop people from eating, from farming, from owning land? Like, we have to start asking these questions at face value. If you were an elite, why would you do this? You answer that question. So this woman goes on to saying what the WEF is thinking about this whole situation. And I want you to listen to this very carefully. She goes on to say, I know that they are worried about the future of agriculture, the farmers, and their future as farmers. But they also know that agriculture needs to move to a more sustainable model of production. So I want you to take that and read into it just a little bit. What is she saying exactly? She's saying they know that we have this agenda in place and that they have to shape up. So basically, they know that they have to get more creative, they have to tighten their belts, they have to make cuts in order for us to move forward. We're letting them understand that. Now they understand they have to be more sustainable, even more sustainable than they have been. So what did they really hear? Really? She goes on. A recommendation urging the EU citizens to eat less meat was also removed from the plan because people are thankfully losing their mind, as they should. The concession came amid mounting demonstration by farmers in, get this, Berlin, France, Germany, Italy, and that is right before the EU elections. So what are they scared of? This is where I want you to think. Their verbiage is basically saying the farmers know that they need to be more sustainable. The farmers are so sustainable, people. They are so sustainable that I don't know how much more sustainable they can get. The farmers are going to understand that this is not a win, that this is just a let's wait until the election is done because we need to have things more proper, more neat, more tied down. We can't have all these people spreading manure and bringing bales of hay everywhere in the middle of trying to get on like the distraction of politics, and we're choosing someone that's going to help us. You know, the Orange Man or the Pierre Poilievre or the Elon Musks. No, the farmers know that if you do not do your own work, you will not be able to harvest anything if you don't sow the seeds. They know that action and being free are coupled, and they know that these people are not backing down, they're backing away. They're backing up. They're not backing down. Now I want you to hear that. The other question I want to know is the sheer fact that they are attacking farmers in the way that they are should give us, the common sheeple that say eats meat, that consumes the things that farmers make, we should be asking the very, very important question of why are they attacking the farmers? They are attacking the farmers because they want to get to whom? The people that are the end users, the end eaters, the end recipients of what the farmers do. Now, if we can no longer get what the farmers are making for us, we will have to turn to the government. The government and their synthetic food alternative. And if you're up for that, then you should probably sit at home, pick a bag of Doritos, because that's what they'll still have available. They may have other ingredients in there that are less good for you even. However, this show is not for you. You can go back to sleep. But for all the rest of us that like to have a choice in veggies or a steak or a chicken, perhaps not every single day, because we do in the West eat too much of everything, essentially. Let's put it mildly. There is way too much throw away food. There's way too much waste. Why are we not attacking those issues first? First, let's attack where we are wasting before we cut off and strangle the source of our food. That would be just a logical way of looking at it, but I may not be logical. Who the heck knows? Now, this comes at an opportune time. They have decided to back down at a time where there's a lot of public awareness. And the reason why there's public awareness is we are in many parts of the world entering a time where, I know in Canada, for example, and in many parts of Europe, there are elections happening. Elections need to be done in a manner where people can concentrate on what's going on. So what are they really afraid of? They are afraid of the wildfire that Canada started some years ago with the convoy. The truck convoy really allowed the world to really see a way that you can bring attention to a situation simply by being present with your vehicle and protesting in a way where you cannot be dismissed. You cannot be dismissed in a transport truck. You cannot be dismissed in a truck that is spraying manure. You cannot be dismissed when you bring bales of hay and you bring them into individual parliament buildings. You cannot be dismissed, but it is not against the law to do so. Wait for it. We probably will have laws in the future preventing this kind of creative way to protest. But then the question goes back to, are they trying to really reinforce trust and really have an open dialogue with what we want and what they want to put on us and actually have a conversation? No. What they are doing is they are learning like AI, and now they will pivot. In the next time that we want to do this again, there will probably be some law where we won't be able to do this, or we will be punished if we are putting together such a protest. So incrementally, there are things that are being lost, and then there's this big hurrah that we won this one thing, which is, it's an important thing, but is this a red herring? This is the question. Did we win, or are they just pulling back to regroup? That is my belief. My belief is that they're regrouping. They're not pulling back. They're not giving us anything that they otherwise hadn't planned for us. If anything, we must press harder. We must spread this information. We must let people know. They go on to say similar tractor protests have since been held in France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, Poland, Romania, and are expected to soon popping up in Slovakia and erupting in Spain just this Tuesday. This article is from February 6th. So what are they afraid of? They are afraid that this will catch on fire and a peaceful awakening of the people will happen, and they will actually lose this battle. But people, we are far, far away from actually achieving any real sense of democracy. We are not being heard. The agenda is still moving forward. I want you to really consider that this is very good news for people that are individuals and that absolutely believe in freedom and choice. And in order to have proper freedom and proper choice, we must have a moral society that has a moral compass. We are in a devastating position where many of us are confused. We don't know who to listen to. The mainstream media says the alternative media is disinformation, misinformation. The alternative media is then saying mainstream media is doing the same. Really, truly, this is not a problem for any society that can think calmly, logically, and with common sense. But common sense is MIA. And there are many, many people that can attest to the fact that common sense has not been maybe lost, but perhaps suspended. And we must find where it is and start using it again, because a people without common sense, without moral grounds to hold themselves steady on, will fall. And we are at the absolute highest place in society humanity has ever been. There's the fewest amount of people that are impoverished on a global scale. And maybe there are many, many, many poor, impoverished people, but much less than 100 years ago, and even more so than 300 years ago. I am imploring everyone that if we want to maintain this level of civilization that we have even today, even by today's standard, even if we do not look at what has happened in the last slipping of the last 3 years, because we as a society have slipped. But these farmers are reminding us the basics, what we need to return to. We must return to common sense and bringing ourselves right back to the ground. We need our feet on the ground. We need to ground ourselves. Go outside. Go outside. See what you need as a human. You need light, you need air, you need food, you need water, you need shelter. All of these things are right now being taken, we're taking it for granted. And while we're sitting around taking it for granted, there are people that are undermining us. And there are brave farmers and other protesters and YouTubers and podcasters that are coming out and saying, wake up, we need you. This is a call to help all farmers that have already looked like they are scaring our WEF friends, the very few, because WEF backwards is few. Why are there so few telling so many what to do? The farmers are only a second wave of people that are trying to wake us up. Let's all do our part. If you are listening to this broadcast, I implore you to please go onto the internet, buy a book, because that's under siege. Go and start looking what things are happening and how they may affect you, because every single one of these events are going to affect us somehow or another. That's just causality, my friends. And causality is an actual world phenomena. You go outside in the cold, you don't wear your gloves, you get freeze bite or freeze burn. Causality is just what it is. If you pick up a hot cup of coffee and spill it on yourself, you will get burned. Much like if you do not pay attention to politics, politics will surely pay attention to you. And with that, and on that note, my friends, I wish you a wonderful evening, and I hope that you join the fight for individual freedom and rights in a moral society that takes care of people and people who pay attention to the elites. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.